To Danish, Samsung contributor who's reporting from London, only channel to be reporting from the spot, also getting details, intricate details of what actually happened in the court. So Danish, we're talking about the arguments that have been made. We just spoke to a legal expert here as well who spoke about the argument that you mentioned of human rights violation in the country and whether that holds ground in the court or not.
Basically, there is widespread acceptance in the judicial system around the world that the economic conditions, the social conditions of different countries differ, and that you can't have a yardstick about the current situation in a jail to be held up, to be taken up as an excuse for not extraditing somebody. Now, how is that assertion met? Well, basically, the judgment here also shows, and it is there in the extradition treaty as well, that requesting states can give assurances to the judicial authority saying that if this person is extradited, these are the conditions that will be there for that person in the jail. So when the extradition case came up for Sanjay Bhandari, as was expected, his lawyers told the court that if he is extradited to India, the jail conditions will not be meeting the human rights bar that is set by the European Court of Justice and other treaties, and that's why he should be extradited. How to counter that, the government of India gives an assurance, which basically means that this is how the person will be kept. So far, the courts here have accepted the assurances that the government of India has. This is also not happening in this case. Although there have been instances when the courts here have said that the assurances are not clear. But in Sanjay Bhandari's case, the assurances given by the government of India were to the point. They met all the arguments that was raised by Sanjay Bhandari. It allayed all the fears that Sanjay Bhandari's lawyers raised in the court. And the judge today, in fact, also mentioned that. He said that Sanjay Bhandari had said that the human rights will be violated if he is sent to India. And the judge said that because there were subsequent assurances that India sent to the court, I am satisfied that his human rights will not be violated. So this has been the norm so far. By and large, the courts here have accepted the assurances that the government of India gives, which says a lot about the esteem in which the courts here hold both the judiciary system and the assurances given by the political executive, which is what has happened in this case as well. But as we have been saying, this is just the first stage, a significant victory nevertheless.
Yes.
Sanjay Bhandari moments ago told me that he will be appealing in the High Court. So of course, the matter does not end here, but then this is the court which tested the evidence. So it is a significant victory for India that the the Enforcement Directorate, has managed to show that there is a prima facie case against Sanjay Bhandari and that he should be extradited.
Okay, all right. Danish, is there a time frame? You mentioned that he could go to the High Court, in which case it's likely to be extended, of course. But any time frame that would take for him to be brought to the country? Any more information on what happens next when it goes to the High Court? Of course, this is a legal tangle that could go on for a while. Stay on with us. We have Mr. Puneet Bali also joining us for a legal perspective. Mr. Bali, thank you for joining us. How do you look at this development? Very, very significant. The Indian authorities securing the extradition of Sanjay Bhandari.
Well, I must congratulate the Indian authorities for doing so, and I'm very happy that now we are persuading and these causes, and we are very serious about them, and the courts abroad are listening to us very seriously. This is a very good development.
Okay. If you can give us details of what could happen next, because one of the arguments that he made in court, Sanjay Bhandari made in court, was of human rights violation in India, that he will not get a fair trial here in the country. That was one of the arguments that was made in court, which of course didn't hold ground, but he has decided to appeal in a higher court. So how is that likely to play out?
Well, you see, appeal is a matter of right, and anybody who's going to be extradited, who's going to have an order like this passed against him, will definitely go for an appeal, which is his legal right. But these issues that I will not get fair trial in India and their violation of human rights is a general basic issue every person wants to take up when he does not want to face the courts in India. So I'm sure the concerned lawyers who are representing the government of India will be well equipped to negate this bogey of an argument.
Okay, all right. Mr. Puneet Bali, thank you for joining us. advocate, they're saying that this is the legal recourse that's available, but this did not stand ground in the court today, so it's not likely to stand ground in the higher court as well. Danish, coming back to you, talking of the time frame of Sanjay Bhandari being brought back to the country, what is it that you're picking up? Because first, he still has that option, as we've been mentioning time and again, of going to a high court, in which case this could be extended.
Well, yes, so at the end of the judgment, the court, the judge, District Judge Michael Snow, told Sanjay Bhandari that you will continue to be out on bail and that you should not breach those bail conditions, following which you could be arrested. So he has to strictly follow those bail conditions, which means that he cannot leave England. His travel documents are still with the authorities here. Of course, he's also deposited money as bail, so all of that will be forfeited, and that the judge directed him to remain in court, but remain in the jurisdiction of England. But what happens next is the case, as is the treaty, as is the procedure, will now go to the Home Secretary. Basically, that is the equivalent of the Union Home Ministry of India. The Home Secretary will then give her assent to the extradition, which is just a formality. As per the extradition treaty, the judge has to test the evidence that is presented before them, and that they have to say whether they think the person can be extradited or not, and then they give that judgment. In this case, as we have been reporting, the only channel to report from Westminster Magistrate Court, Judge Michael Snow has said that Sanjay Bhandari can be extradited. We will now get that file, and then will give the okay, will give the assent to the extradition of Sanjay Bhandari. Only after that assent is given will Sanjay Bhandari then take the case further to the High Court. So we have to wait for some time. It could be few days, few weeks, perhaps a month or so as well. Anything is possible. But of course, as I have been saying, Sanjay Bhandari has the option of lodging an appeal in the High Court, and then the High Court will hear that application. First, that application will be on paper. Whether the judgment by the Westminster Magistrate Court can be tested further or not. Sanjay Bhandari then also has the option of making an in-person appeal if the High Court rejects the on-paper appeal. So there is a long process nevertheless. But of course, as I have been saying, a significant victory, because the trial court is a primary court that tests all the evidence. The judge here was presented with a large body of evidence from both the sides, which was tested, and the judge found that Sanjay Bhandari can be extradited. So it is a significant victory, because in the High Court, they don't test the evidence again. They don't again allow the incorporation of new evidence unless it is supremely important to do so. So a huge victory for India, but process will still take time, and Sanjay Bhandari till then will remain here in the United Kingdom.
And Danish, just to follow up on that, what were some of the submissions that were being made by Mr. Bhandari in court to prevent his extradition to India? What are the submissions that the magistrate court in Westminster has now overruled?
Well, there were a whole host of issues, which we have seen in the past as well, quite a few of them. They follow the same template, basically that this is a politically motivated case and that he has cooperated with the authorities in the past. Because remember, India has seen that the income tax authorities have spoken about the fact that he needs to be in India and available for questioning, and it was during the investigation that he left India. So he claimed that this is a politically motivated case, that there is no case against him, that he's a very significant businessman who has been paying his taxes. All those arguments were rejected by the High Court based on the submission by the Enforcement Directorate with supporting documents from the income tax authorities, to the effect that Sanjay Bhandari had assets abroad and he did not disclose them, he did not pay taxes to them. As I said, similar documents have been submitted to the Westminster Magistrate Court, which relates to properties here in London, in Dubai, a company incorporated in Panama, in British Virgin Islands. All those documents, all those arguments that India put forth was accepted by the Westminster Magistrate Court. That case has been made out against Sanjay Bhandari. The other limb of the argument that was presented by Sanjay Bhandari and his lawyers was that human rights will be violated. We have the numerous sections of the Act that will not be against Sanjay Bhandari because the present conditions are very bad in India. all those arguments were rejected by the district judge Michael Snow, who said that Sanjay Bhandari can be extradited to India, and that is the judgment that has come, which we are exclusively breaking here on Science Now. As I attended the courtroom number 4 of the Westminster Magistrates Court, just a short while ago, Sanjay Bhandari has been assured that he can act, but of course, appeal process which will now unravel over the next few weeks.
And what's also very interesting, Danish, is the fact that case under the Official Secrets Act in India has actually been registered. There had been a lookout notice that had been issued against him before he fled the country in 2016, and even the Enforcement Directorate had managed to secure a red corner notice against him in October 2017 for the several allegedly dubious transactions that he's under scrutiny for, many of them dating back to the time that the UPA government was here in power. How much did some of those factors actually weigh in terms of considerations of the magisterial court to eventually agree to his extradition?
Well, just taking forward your point, there was one especially point that now just strikes me. The submissions by the CPS on behalf of the Government of India was also mentioned that there was an amnesty period during which people who have not disclosed their assets, who have not paid proper taxes, were allowed to come out and pay so. The submissions by the Government of India clearly say that Mr. Bhandari did not take advantage of that particular period. I think it was a period of 3 to 4 months where Mr. Bhandari could have come forward, told the authorities that these are my assets and I'm ready to pay the taxes. As per the submissions made here in the Westminster Magistrates Court, which I have heard and I have read, this point was also pointed out that instead of taking advantage of that amnesty scheme, Mr. Bhandari in fact redoubled his efforts to further evade taxes, and in fact he fled the country while the investigations were on. And that was a very crucial element as well, because all those points were made in front of the magistrate here to impress upon the point that Mr. Bhandari has sufficient time. He was also in India while the investigations were on, but he chose to go away. As a result of which India had to pursue him, and he was found here in London. He lives here in a central London flat, which is super expensive. It's a very posh area right in the heart of London. We have visited. I have reported from there as well. So all those points were made here in the Westminster Magistrates Court. And of course, as I have been saying, today is a significant day because India also made it very clear to the magistrate here that they want to make an example. They want to show that people who evade taxes, who indulge in money laundering will not be allowed to go away easily, even if they leave Indian shores. And today's judgment is a testament to the fact that the documents that the government agencies stacked up here all worked out in India's favor, as a result of which Judge Michael Snow of the Westminster Magistrates Court gave a judgment saying that Sanjay Bhandari can be extradited to India. The legal terminology is a bit different. As per the rules, the matter will be now before the Home Secretary, but that is just a technicality in the wake of the fact that the court here has found no bar to Sanjay Bhandari's extradition. The Home Secretary will inevitably sign on the extradition order, but till then, Mr. Bhandari will get time to prepare an appeal in the High Court, which is what he will be doing, and he confirmed to me in the court just a few moments ago.
And that's very interesting, Danish. You've in fact chronicled the number of people who actually have found a safe home in the United Kingdom while they've been running away from the clutches of Indian law. Sanjay Bhandari is now also all part of that list. Of course, he's now being extradited. But what also remains to be seen, Danish, is the fact that Sanjay Bhandari had even in his submissions tried to invoke the United Nations Human Rights Council's observations on arbitrary detention. This is a ploy that has often been used even by the likes of Vijay Mallya to prevent their extradition to India.
Well, Bhandari is not illegally detained anywhere. He very much remains in London. The case he's referring to could be of Christian Mitchell, which is a separate case.
Absolutely.
That person was from Dubai. London, different set of working relationship with India. And the judge here has found the assurances India gave to be good enough to ensure that shows that his human rights will not be violated. inevitably all interested persons raise that defense because it is their right. The law here gives equal opportunity to everyone to come out and present their case. The extradition treaty, which is in force between India and UK, specifically says that the extradition cannot be allowed if human rights of the interested person is at risk, or that if the human rights will be breached. That is taken care of by the assurances that India gives. There is a larger argument to be made, of course, that the prisons are not well, they are overcrowded, the medical facilities are not there, but that is a separate issue. Those problems, those structural problems do exist, and the courts here do solve that. But the case is about one particular person, and the assurances that India gives is about that requested person on how that person's human rights will be protected. And if the court is satisfied because of the details that the government of India gives, the judge has the right to okay the extradition, which is what has happened. I've been saying the first set of the arguments, the first of the trial was the prima facie case which India won, and then also, of course, the huge arguments that went on about the violation of human rights, likely violations of human rights. So, should not surprise with the court here because the government of India to the effect that Sanjay Bhandari's human rights will not be violated. And as a result,
yes,
Judge Michael Snow has that Sanjay Bhandari can extradite to India.
And Danish, give us a slightly broader perspective in terms of India's attempts now in the recent past, especially having brought to the notice of the United Kingdom authorities about the number of alleged fugitives who are actually residing on British soil. Now, Arun Jaitley, when he was Finance Minister of India, had actually brought this up and said that this is something that the Indians are not taking very lightly. They have taken exception to the fact that many of our fugitives are now residing in the UK. Bilaterally, how aggressively has India brought this issue up?
Well, that has been a key issue, I must say. No meetings between officials of both the countries is complete without the mention of extradition and without the mention of the fact that there are far too fugitives who have chosen the United Kingdom to come here. But there is rule of the law, there are procedures, there is the extradition treaty, and all of that has to be followed. In the case of Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi, India won convincingly. The trial court rejected all their arguments. They went to the High Court. In Vijay Mallya's case, the High Court too did not agree with the arguments put forth by Vijay Mallya. But at the end of the day, Vijay Mallya is very much here. Judicially, we won the case, but of course there are other provisions as well, basically issues of asylum, issues of appealing to the Home Office, saying that they have further risks if they are removed to India, and all of that. That has a cascading effect, and in some ways it takes away from the judicial victory that India has been achieving, which is what happened in the case of Vijay Mallya. There have been instances and people have been sent back as well. Sanjeev Chawla, the bookie who was charged by the Delhi police, by the CBI, the court here sent him back to India. Sanjeev Chawla is very much in India. So cases have been successful as well. But there are other provisions of law, there are other, if I may say so, exit clauses that allow these people. It has been a matter of concern. The political leaders have raised this with the counterparts here in the United Kingdom. But of course, as I have been saying, the case today against Sanjay Bhandari passed to the muster, passed to the judicial muster, as a result of which a significant legal victory has been achieved. What happens later, only time will tell.
And Danish, since you've taken us through the details of the case, you're of course reporting live now from the Westminster Court, and you also cited certain precedents in the past that has caused inordinate delays in extraditing these people back to India. Vijay Mallya is a case in point. What's the timeline that we are possibly now looking at now that Sanjay Bhandari will go into appeal and approach the higher courts of law?
Well, December is fast approaching and things slow down here. Because of Christmas, because of New Year, anything will now only go to the next year, which means that over the next few months, a date will have to be found by the High Court Registrar to allow the submission of on-paper arguments by Sanjay Bhandari. A single judge will then review those arguments, which will be made on paper. That could take anywhere between 8-9 months, perhaps, if not more. Once that is done, then Sanjay Bhandari again has the option of making a in-person appeal, which basically means that the lawyers representing Sanjay Bhandari can argue in court as well. So first there will be an on-paper appeal to have the judgment of the Westminster Magistrate Court turned down. If the judge does not agree with that, Sanjay Bhandari has the option of making an in-person appeal, where basically, as I said, his lawyers can then address the High Court to impress them why the Westminster Magistrate Court judgment is bad in law. So it's a long process. Anywhere over 2 to 3 years, I might say, it will take looking at past cases. So another 2 years in the appeal process, and then if the appeal is accepted, then that argument will take place. There is a possibility that further if the court feels evidence might be given as well. We don't know what that will take, but 2-3 years is the minimum at which we are looking at.
And Danish, what's also interesting to see is the conduct of the UK police authorities after Sanjay Bhandari, in fact, arrived on British shores in 2016. He was apprehended 4 years later in 2020. But after his arrest in 2020, the authorities there appear to have now moved with some sense of alacrity. There were a series of stringent conditions that were actually attached to his arrest, and he could not move around freely as well. And he was also tagged. There was a certain geotag that was attached to him to ensure that the police always knows his whereabouts. So the UK authorities appear to have acted with some element of strictness from 2020 onwards.
Well, yes, that's the footage that we are showing. I was there. That was Sanjay Bhandari's address. That is the registered address from which he cannot move out during certain hours. He cannot travel if he has to travel anywhere outside England, or if he has to be out for a significant period of time, he has to approach the court. So very strict conditions were there. But just to give a proper perspective, London is a global city. The police here are flooded with requests for extradition, which is what happened from India's side as well. We have had our own rather long list of people who are wanted and have chosen UK to be their home. So when that extradition request is made, the UK Central Authority has to look through the papers, ask for further details if it is required, and then a warrant is issued. They decide on those warrants based on the gravity of the offense, if there is a murder, if there are terrorism charges, if there are other cases. Accordingly, the UK authorities take that call of arresting that person. But as you said, once that person was arrested, once Sanjay Bhandari was arrested, the matters started swiftly, and that he was brought here in the Westminster Magistrate Court. I must say that he was arrested twice. On the first occasion, he was arrested on the charges of money laundering, and then the next year in 2021, he was arrested on charges of tax evasion. So that is the procedure according to which then he started making the rounds of the Westminster Magistrate Court. He also has to visit a police trial started to register his presence. So there were strict conditions that Sanjay Bhandari had to follow. But as I have said earlier, London is a global city. People from all around the world come here and have state shelter to frustrate the law authorities in their country. So things do take time. They do move once that gets lifted, which is what
Right, Danish.